and welcome to Interchange TV. I'm your host, Avis Mulhall, and joining me today is Aaron Tait.
How you doing, Avis?
I'm really good. Thanks so much for joining us today. So Aaron's our keynote speaker for today, and you've got a really spectacular story behind you. And I think one of the things that we talked about earlier was that sometimes when people have this crazy, amazing story behind them, that almost it feels like people can't relate to it, and that, you know, they put people on pedestals. And, you know, how important is it that, you know, people realize that there is no such thing as extraordinary, that, you know, we're all just normal people doing stuff? You know, and what advice would you give to people about just getting stuff started?
I'm fascinated by a term called the anonymous extraordinaries. Mm-hmm. So if I look at the civil rights movement in America, I'm not so inspired by, obviously I'm inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and these sorts of people, but there's actually some really interesting stories in the civil rights movement in America of local people doing local actions and that army of stuff happening. Yeah. Bobby Kennedy is one of my favorite leaders, and he said, few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and the total of all of these acts, that's how our history will be written. Yeah. So there's lots of people doing small things and starting small, not going, wow, the heroes are up there, how do I start? Yeah,
I think that's a really wonderful point, because I think, you know, there's this kind of myth that everybody needs to live an extraordinary life, and people have this fear of the ordinary, and I think that's a really, really beautiful point, that each and every one of us are capable of doing something that makes a difference. Yeah. Yeah, really wonderful. And you've been helping entrepreneurs kind of get out there and build their projects and, you know, tell their stories. Today's theme is very much around storytelling. For you, kind of, what are the core tips that you would give people in uncovering their impact story?
They often refer to it as the founder's story, so it is that moment where you thought, wow, what's going on? My founder's story is pretty extreme, and I'll talk about that today. But the most important thing in your story is your why. Friedrich Nietzsche, the great philosopher, said the one who has a why to live by can bear almost any how. Yeah. So it is that why that will get you through your venture, help you grow that venture, and that's what people want to hear, and that's what people will invest in. So if you can understand why you're doing this, that's what people will buy. Perfect.
And I think, you know, following on from that, the why is super important, because if you really believe in your why, that's when you keep going when things get really tough. And I think, you know, a lot of the time, if you know how difficult the situation and the project you're working on is going to be, you probably wouldn't do it in the first place. So I know that you faced a lot of difficulties in getting your projects off the ground, as have I and every other entrepreneur I know. What sort of tips would you give to people in kind of getting through those difficult times?
So we often say your apprenticeship's finished, so there's no more training courses you need to go on, no more incubators and accelerators that you need to get through before you can really start. So we say just get going. Yes, you'll fail, yes, you'll learn from that, but the best study that you can do out of a program like this is just to get started. Yeah. So, and figure it out as you go. But if you really have a vision of where you want to head and why you're doing this, you'll get through all the crap that comes your way. Yeah. But it is about just having a crack and going for it.
Great. And one last thing, it's like Interchange has been, you know, a really intense journey for these guys. They've been going through 5 weeks of programs, and, you know, this is about learning the key tools. So they've been learning about storytelling, they've been learning about lean startup methodologies, they've been learning about, you know, how to tell their stories, they've been learning a lot about empathy. And, you know, for this program, they're just working on one idea, but it's really about those tools and methods. For you, you know, you teach people entrepreneurship skills as well. So how important is that kind of understanding of empathy and lean methodologies to you in kind of pursuing a project that actually matters and happens and is successful?
Yeah, I think the entrepreneurs that succeed, they solve problems. Yes. They don't just go, I've got a solution. It's really about understanding the problems intimately. Einstein said if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes trying to solve it.
That's great.
So yeah, it's really about getting deep, understanding people, understanding their problems and solving them, because people don't take their herbal pills, they take their pain medication. Yeah. So do you have pain medication for people, and are they reaching for it? Yeah. If you do, you're going to be a very successful entrepreneur.
That's it, and I think that's really the crux of it, you know, understand the problem and everything else will really fall into place, and that's why empathy is such an important business tool as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very much looking forward to your keynote. I've seen you speak before, and I know he's rad. So you guys are in for a treat. Thanks for joining me on Interchange TV, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.